So, as I had explained in my previous video on my recent, my great crusade to stop using media, I failed rather epically. Um, and that's okay. I'm completely okay with the fact that I failed. Um, and I wanted to talk a little bit about um, kind of what failure is, a little bit about the feelings that it kind of brings out in us, and how to harness those feelings. Um, so, kind of prefacing this, um, failure in and of itself is inherently subjective. It is possible to have an objective failure, but for the most part, failure is subjective. Um, for a straight A student, getting a C would be complete and total failure. But for someone whose grade is consistently failing, below a 68, getting a C would be like a great success. So it's really subjective. Um, so I personally am kind of trying to see this as, I made it, like 4 days, I think it was. I actually have forgotten how many days it was. Um, I made it 4 days without any outside media. That in and of itself is a is an accomplishment. I did it completely, and that to me that says a lot. I was able to break free, even for a really limited amount of time. And what that kind of teaches me is that not only is it possible, I did it, and um, that even though I I failed from my own standpoint, the fact that I was able to do it is um, encouraging to others and to myself. That if I did it for 4 days before, what if I tried to do it for 5? Um, and then as I close in on the end of the 5th day, what if I tried to do it for 6, and then 7 and 8, and just take it one day at a time? Get to that. All right, at the end of this day, I'll quit. I'll give up, and I'll go back to media. And then don't lie to yourself and convince yourself that you are going to quit when you get to this point, and you'll get there, and then you'll just, well, it's just one more day. Well, it's just one more day. Well, it's just one more day. And you know what? Even if a day is too hard, it's just one more hour. It's just one more hour. It's just one more hour. You can do this. And eventually, you get through 24 of those, and you hit a day. You get through another 24, you hit another day. You just take it piece by piece by piece. And I think that that is going to be the key to success. And I never would have figured it out if I hadn't failed. Um, there's a famous kind of little anecdote that goes around, and I don't actually have any idea how true it is, but it doesn't matter. Um, Thomas Jefferson, or not Thomas Jefferson, um, the guy that invented the light bulb, Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison tried 67 times to create a light bulb and failed. And on the 68th try, he was able to get a light bulb that worked. And when asked about it, he responded with, "I didn't fail 67 times to create a light bulb. I found 67 ways not to make a light bulb. But you only need one way to make it work." Elon Musk, most people from my generation, or the people that I'm going to be coming from, not necessarily some of my audience, but a good, good chunk of the audience that I'm going to end up, so that's going to sort of gravitate towards my channel, most likely knows who Elon Musk is. And Elon Musk is, of course, the founder, president, CEO, he is the head guy in charge of SpaceX. SpaceX is a private space exploration company. And he tried 4 times to make a rocket. Now, looking historically, a lot of different people who worked on rockets failed rather epically. And every time that they failed, people were hurt, people were injured, people died. Property was damaged. Property was completely destroyed, eviscerated. Time was wasted. But you know what? Something was learned from every one of those failures. Um, Werner von Braun learned how exactly he needed to set up the liquid oxygen rocket motors and carried that forward. And even though he failed, I think it was over 20 times to create a viable rocket, he eventually succeeded. And that rocket went on to inspire the U.S. space program in the 1960s. And then now, Elon Musk making rockets, he tried to design rockets on his own, designed 3 rockets, and they all failed. On the 4th one, he said he knew what he did wrong. He learned from those 3 failures. They were educational. They taught him. And he was able to dump every cent he had owned into SpaceX. Built the 4th rocket. It was successful, and he was given a contract by NASA to fly stuff to the International Space Station. Think about that for a minute. This man made rockets, and he tried 3 times and failed 3 times, but learned from his mistakes. And on the 4th try, he knew what happened and fixed it and got a multi-million-dollar contract to send stuff to the International Space Station. That is some of the most successful failure that I can think of. How can you... So, failing is okay. Failing is how we learn. If you do not fail to do something correctly, you don't really ever learn the why and how that something is done the way that it is. One of the things that I kind of learned from, that I kind of made this realization out of, is the HEMA club that I've been going to. We study Spanish rapier, and while fencing, there's a specific way that you do things. If you don't, the opponent is able to get you. Now, in modern HEMA, we're not fighting with sharp swords, and they have safety tips on them. But these systems were developed for people who were dueling and defending their own life in street self-defense. So it would make sense that these techniques are done a specific way because they will keep you alive, whether that's dueling to protect your honor or fighting to protect your life. And there really are reasons that we do things the way that we do, but sometimes you don't quite get that, and you try to do it slightly different, or you don't quite pay as much attention to something that you should, and you end up stuck. And in HEMA, that just means you lost the fight. But when this was the go-to self-defense weapon, getting stuck meant you were probably gonna die. So these things exist for a reason, and if you didn't fail in practice, you would never learn the importance of doing it. And I'm starting to kind of ramble and labor this point a little bit, so I want to try and cut this off pretty soon. But I think it's just important that we have examples of why failing is good, why failing is necessary. It is necessary to fail at the things that you do, because not failing means you won't learn. And if you don't learn, you can never become better at things. So, I guess I hope that little piece of wisdom that I've discovered on my own is beneficial, is helpful to you. We try to learn from each other's mistakes, but sometimes it really does warrant just making the mistake yourself and learning it firsthand. It's not always fun, it's not always easy, and it doesn't always feel good. In fact, more often than not, it feels pretty crappy. But if you take that feeling of the feeling that failure gives you, and you use that and channel it into learning why you failed, what you did wrong, and how to fix it, you have to make sure that you move past the I failed to the how do I fix it, and then follow through. That's really important. If you don't do that, you're going to hurt yourself. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you will hurt yourself. You have to make sure that you make that movement from I failed to learning from your mistake. And I think it's really important to all of us that we be able to do this. It's really easy to feel like we've let people down by failing, that we've let ourselves down, that we've somehow endangered ourselves or our tribe, for lack of a better term. And sometimes that's true, but more often than not, there is room for failure, and it's important, and it's really important to know that you're not. Just because you failed does not mean that you let people down, and just because you failed does not mean that you've endangered anyone, or that because you failed that things are going to somehow change or be worsened. It's kind of an innate feeling in us that we feel like we've let the tribe down through our failure, and the reality is that there is room for failure so that the tribe can grow as the individual grows. And it's really important to recognize that as well, I think. So now that I'm starting to get super rambly, the whole I'm really tired thing is starting to set in, so I'm gonna go to bed. I will try this experiment again sometime eventually. We'll see. But not right away. I think it's important that I take a break and I try to work on myself more, and maybe in a month or two, I try again for 2 weeks and see what I can do. But for now, you guys will be seeing some pretty regular content from me, and I think that's pretty much it. So, if I hope that this was helpful or insightful to someone. And please, in the comments, share about times that you've failed, and how you were able to learn from it and grow as a person. I would really appreciate seeing those stories. Thank you.